Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the tie to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. You gotta love that funky music right there, like bringing it in. It makes you smooth jazz. I love it. So anyway, welcome back. Never Been Promoted podcast, YouTube channel, the show that where we are out here trying to help you unleash your entrepreneur. If this is your first time here or listening ever, thanks for coming in. And our mission is simple: help millions of entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. Cut that tie, all the stuff holding you back, the people, the excuses, that sense of entitlement you might feel, all these little fears you hold on to, you just don't need to. That's how you're going to be successful. You're going to need to do that. We're going live today with Kevin Juza. I think I'm saying it right. He's probably going to yell at me. It's probably something sexier like Juza. He's in the green room where we don't provide any snacks or beverages of any type. He has to bring his own. We're going to bring him on stage. He's the founder of the Tenacious Leader, and this guy knows sales. And if you want to know how to grow a company, you're going to need to grow sales as part of that journey. And we're going to get into the weeds with that. As we're talking along here, I want you to know that the thing we really want you to do is enjoy it. If you got questions, ask me. Go to youtube.com and maybe subscribe at the Never Been Promoted channel. Add some comments. If you don't like the stuff, get me on LinkedIn. Tell me what you like, what you don't like about it, and give a follow and or just connect with me and let's have a conversation. But enough shameless promotion. I'm bringing Kevin to the stage. Kevin, how are you?
Hey, I just finished the Doritos. Thanks.
Doritos that I didn't provide for you in the health nut too. I forgot to mention he's a health nut.
Oh yeah.
Really. Kevin, thanks for jumping in. It's Juza, is that correct?
Every letter, Juza, Juza. Yeah.
I mean, I could say Juza. It's
more like the sexy version. Yeah.
It's like more like Juza. He's the tenacious leader. He's too sexy.
I'm down in San Diego, so I'm close to Mexico. So you could do the Juza.
I would think people would call you Juza. Juza.
There's a lot of
that. Before we get diving into the Tenacious Leader, I for a minute there when I first did it, I just saw the Tenacious, and I was thinking, oh, the Tenacious D. He's part of that music group, and he's going to sing for us today. It's not the case. All right, icebreaker is not really an icebreaker question. Is more of what is the worst sales pitch you've ever heard?
Worst sales pitch
and it could be, your choice of format, but what is the one you're like, it's so bad it's memorable?
It's just like talking about yourself the whole time. It's when the customer just talks about themselves. I was just working with a customer this weekend, and he's the founder of a great website and a great tool. It's really cool. But listen to them talking on the convention floor. All he does is talk about the functions and features of the website. And the best sales pitch, you have to ask questions about what they are actually looking for. And so when you start pitching without knowing what they're looking for, you're just missing out on an opportunity to actually build authenticity and connection.
Do you see this a lot in technical founders?
Yes.
More so than sales founders? Like they're like, oh, the features that let me talk about the code, how we got 40 lines. I see this a lot too. And I'm like, no one cares about that. And they get offended. And you're like, no, they really do not care about that. I
try to, because they're so smart, because they're brilliant people. But what I do is I try to get them to think about like a puppet master. You got to think of a feature that's so cool. What's a question to get people to come up with that idea and make them take their technology and make it more complicated in their brain, which then makes them sound more normal.
Right. I find certain cultures too, not that anyone's excluded from this, but certain cultures will certainly over-explain stuff when you're like, what does it do? And you're like 30 minutes into it, like, still don't know what it does. Now, I usually don't let people get to that part, but a lot of people will, and they'll be thinking, when does this meeting end? Well, that's great. Thank you. Great meeting. Good stuff. Have no idea what you do. We'll talk to you later. Kevin, you want to talk about the Tenacious Leader, what you're working on? Like, give me the kind of the 60-second pitch on that, and then back in to why we should believe you.
Ooh, believe me.
Here you go, solo layout mode. It's your turn.
Well, I help small business owners who are good at what they do actually build the clientele pipeline that they need and want. Typically, their goal is to always, for a solopreneur, their goal is to make that $20,000 a month in income, recurring monthly income, but they get in their way of stuck in processes. And what I do is I help them break down and see themselves in action and getting things done and momentum. and making sure they're doing the daily activities that they need to be successful at. And no one wants to do those things. But that's where you get a coach to come in. The Tenacious Leader, I created that name because it's about never giving up. And when you're following a dream or building a business or trying to be good at sales or trying to be good at being a parent, whatever, you always got to learn from your mistakes and get up and keep moving forward. And that's what makes us all have experience, wisdom, and success.
You're just making shit up. I'll tell you what, you don't get up. You cry in a corner and you quit. That's how you become a 6-9.
You don't cry, you don't care.
That's true. That's such a good point. It's such a good point. Like besides my wife being very smart to not allow me to put a couch right here, which it would fit perfectly. This little IKEA one turns out to a bed. She knows I would probably nap on it more than I should because it's just dead quiet in here and a little warm. That aside, has nothing to do with it. I have felt like crying in that corner over there many times. Like, what am I doing? I can't do it. Like, and you're right. It's because I care about what I'm trying to build, what I'm trying to become. And if you don't, you got to quit doing it. If you just like, I honestly don't give a shit, I'm just here to check out, then check out or go to something else. Cause the no passion you're just going to end, it's going to burn out. Maybe in your work, talk about that fine line of I'm just so into it versus learning how to become the person you need to become to sell it, like the changes that need to happen. So because that's where it's hard, right? It's like you're trying to teach someone who's uncoachable. So I'll be quiet, but like kind of set up some of those initial challenges you run into when people call you in.
Right. When I sit down, and a lot of times people stop in the agreement and moving forward, working with me because they're afraid of what they're going to have to face to actually get things done for themselves. You know, they have great ideas, they have the process, they have the dream, but it's those little steps they have to put in place to make it happen and get out of their own way. You know, I work with clients that'll get stuck with the marketing or the website or whatever. And really, you need to just connect with people. You know, the power of sales, the power of reaching your goals is connecting with people that want to listen to you. And the more you're afraid to say things, the more you're trying to hide of who you really are. Many times when I'm working with customers and listening to what they're trying to accomplish, I'm trying to really listen. Are they trying to tell me what I want to hear? Or are they trying to tell me what they really believe? And when you believe what you're doing, everything comes a lot easier to happen. And you attract the people that want what you need. We're trying to be perfect to everyone. You never find anyone.
Well, okay. So dive into that just a bit. So if you're trying to be perfect to everyone, you find it. So, okay. When you get called in, what's usually the trigger? Like what's the thing that's happened or what are they feeling when they're like finally go, at least I got to talk to this guy?
So when I'm working with a founder who is a founder-led sales team, typically they have like say 20 people in their company, maybe a little more. So they're feeling that weight of I've got to be successful to feed these mouths. And so they put all that work in that sales pipeline, and they're so focused on never being able to train and teach other people that they go out and hire a salesperson. And you can't do that because an ego of a good salesperson and the ego of a founder, they clash. So the best thing for a founder to do is actually elevate people from around them into a sales role because they believe the founder. They believe in what they're doing. Now you're just giving them the tricks and the skills to actually be a salesperson, to actually elevate their product and actually connect with people. I love hiring people coming into a company with no experience because they're more curious and more authentic talking to customers.
Yeah. And then once they bring you in, you talk about a little bit, but you talk about the hurdle. What's for sure every time you got to get them by? Like, I mean, because they want to do it. They want to get into this. And I know I would, but I'm curious what I don't know I'm going to face. And you're going to say to me, I'm going to be like, so let's talk about that, because bringing in a coach that actually can help you have sales has a real ROI effect. You got to be ready for it. And so talk through that kind of initial phase.
Right. When I sit down and talk with people, it's kind of woo-woo. I know it's not really business, but it's woo-woo. It's really, what is your essence that you're trying to accomplish? and really finding out people to get down to their true reason for what they're trying to accomplish in their sales role or their business role. And once they really figure out their essence of who they are, what they're trying to feed within them, they can then be successful moving forward. And that's typically what's hard for some people to say out loud.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to face that, you know what, I'm afraid of failure. I'm
Yeah.
afraid of not being successful. I'm afraid of, or on the flip side, if I get too successful, what would I do with all that money? I don't know how to take care of my family, my friends first. You know, so it's sometimes we overcomplicate the true success. You know,
Do you ever find that they have a false sense of what success is? And I'll give you an example. I think a lot of people equate, oh, if I'm going to become an entrepreneur, I'm in sales or whatever, I need to be like the 4 or 5 unicorns they've seen in the magazines. And yet they're crushing it given wherever they are in their career or what are like, you can't make $1 million on as a sales guy if the volume or the numbers aren't there. But
I see that
most definition of success around that.
Yes, people, founders, what they use is revenues totally as their gauge. That's their grade. If I have revenue coming in, I'm doing success. And when you're a founder, when you're building a business, when you're building a sales pipeline, you have to look at the daily activities, because those daily activities are your win. And so once you start signing customers and you make a good month, if you're not doing the daily rigor, you're never going to get a next month. And so typically that's what really falls off. As we get going, they get momentum, they get some success, and then they stop doing the basics that they need to be doing every day to build a business, because that's where they relax on. Then they fall backwards. Then you got to play catch up again.
That's a great point. So the success is in the repeatability of the process, because sales is really a process. People think it's chit chat and hitting golf balls. It's not. That's after you.
Not very many golf balls, but I love to go golfing.
Right. I mean, when I go anymore, I feel like I hit a lot of golf balls, and I used to be able to just take a couple balls, but now I might need a pack. I don't know. It goes far. I'm starting to go different. Anyway, the point being is it's really more of a process,
right,
with a bit of a style, meaning like you're try to get people to buy, less so just push. Have you seen a dynamic change though in the last maybe 5-10 years of boiler room mentality to, maybe trust-based, like get people to buy kind of idea, or do the same rules been applying for a decade or more?
What I see in the marketplace is everybody's trying to go digital. They're trying to go with emails and everything social, just try to get that social work that you don't have to do anything. It's a bot doing it through sales, LinkedIn, or a bot going out there on Facebook, whatever, out social media, and trying to get it all automated. And really, I'm old school in the sense you got to pick up the phone and you got to talk to people. You got to go face to face and meet with people. And that's the old adage, is more people will trust you when they actually talk to you because they know it's real. When you're talking with somebody on your texting back and forth, you don't know if it's a bot, or if it's AI, or if it's actually a human that really cares about what you're talking about. It's like calling customer service and they're using bots to provide customer service. That ain't no customer service. We've got to sit back and really look at what really works, and it's human connection.
In this kind of instant gratification AI world we live in right now, I find it amazing how many very educated Gen Xers, get a little bit younger, I understand because that's the world, but where they expect overnight leads, success in a trust sales cycle. And what I mean by that, it's often B2B or some type of higher ticket sales where you really, this is not going to be like, oh, I tried it $100 a month and we move on. Didn't work. This might be multi-thousands of dollars someone's going to invest with your company or something else. And they're like, well, I can't get, I'm not getting leads. I'm like, are you investing in the same things that would have worked 10 years ago, which is, like you said, have a 15-minute meeting with them on Zoom. If you're local, go grab a coffee. If you're going to a networking event, invite them. Like things where you're starting to add value to the world. Are you seeing that same effect where people expect things way faster just because there's this word AI, which people often equate to automation? Anyway, the point being is, are you seeing that as well, and as a problem and a habit you got to break as a mentality, or maybe talk about that zone a bit?
Well, the reality is, if you're looking at a B2C customer base or a B2B, I specialize in working B2B because the buying cycle is longer than a transaction. And so you're trying to, I do see in the marketplace people trying to use quicker sales, quicker process, and that really doesn't work. I can give a list of somebody on the phone and I can teach them after about 3 weeks how to call a list of people, 150 to 100 people a day, and they're going to be making 1 to 2 meetings a week. But how do you get to like that 4 to 5 meetings a week? That's typically your people you talk to and you start building relationships. And I call it the connection pipeline. And you have a connection pipeline that you just keep fostering, keep building. Then all of a sudden you start getting those 1 to 2 in the moment type of conversations, but you then turn the other ones in from the people you've built over time.
And well, and what you're talking about too, if you don't have those processes in place to say, hey, once you have a customer or you have a good prospect or somebody who's like, hey, I don't need this. I love what you guys are doing. Be able to have the process like, well, listen, is there someone in your network that you'd be comfortable just making a simple introduction that might need the services where I can learn a little bit more about like looking for feedback cycles? Like, if you don't have those processes in place, you got no chance of really executing with that with any rigor or to get to that 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Or do you see that a lot where people completely drop the ball on it? Or is it something that literally like, you're like, I'm almost every time I'm building this from scratch with the people I'm working with?
It's very repeatable what I have to do with people because it truly is just putting in the process in place. It's the structure that you would build a foundation to a house on. You have to have some organization and ways for them to actually engage in what they love to do. So that's the hard part. Is it is something that's repeatable, and people say this is boring. I'm getting so many no's. And reality is 98% of the people you talk to are going to say no. But you got to keep doing it so you get to the 2%, the 3%. If you get good at it, the 5%, that's going to say yes to you. But it takes that example of figuring out that talk track that actually makes you resonate to the customer that want to work with you.
Have you ever been completely blown away or shocked that your own system didn't work with a customer and you had you had your own realization and pivot?
I think it comes down to sometimes where I get the question you asked before, what sometimes gets in your way is they say, here's the messagings, here's the emails I want you to use. And it's just like, we're not right. One thing that is new to what it was before is you can write a big book in an email, and that would help educate, especially if you're more of a logical customer. They'll read that and dive into it and go. But majority of the people aren't logical like that. And you have to keep things short snippets to it so they're staying engaged. And so that's what I see as the biggest connection with people is how do you really connect to people in just 3 sentences? That's what it comes down to. And when you get people to read or react to their social media, that there is spaces for that stuff to educate or build relevancy, but it just takes that outcome to actually connect with people.
Well, it does. And you're short versus long. You send me a long email. There's no, I mean, it could be like describing the coming of Jesus Christ. I'm not reading it. I wouldn't. I'm like, you need to put that in like the subject line. Like,
Right.
And like, because I just won't. I mean, an AI manages my inbox, so it's like for me to look at it, something that I no chance. It's just none. Like, and people who are thoughtful readers of emails, I don't know, sorry is the right for them, because if they're literally going through all these emails, the amount of spam they must get in a day must anger the hell out of them. Like, because you're not gonna. So I'd still think they'd appreciate a shorter email with some kind of like follow-up piece, because I'm with you.
Here's one thing though about voicemails. Repeat kind of one thing I repeat all the time in coaching people. You listen to their voicemail, yada yada yada. Call me back at 858 da 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 da. You know what? I told them you don't need to leave your voicemail no more. You don't need to leave. I'm sorry. You don't need to leave a phone number anymore, because everybody sees your phone number. If you're wasting times and seconds, they're just deleting your message. So being relevant in your voicemails is telling them what you're sending to them or what you're going to do next. Building that trust through a voicemail. If they're going to listen to you, you got to connect with them. Something about either I emailed you about this or I'm going to call you next week again, and letting them know.
My voicemail, I probably need to put it back because I checked it there. They had 53 messages. It used to say, don't leave a voicemail, because I'm encouraging people just to text me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my voicemail sequence is #717171, which is delete, next, delete. I don't even listen to them. There's not a thing on a voicemail I've ever missed where I'm like, oh, I should have picked that up. And so
right,
if you're going to leave a voicemail and you start out with, hey, it's over. If you write, something to the effect of, I don't know what it would be because I'm not even listening, but like I have
a lot of
you have
voicemails.
like literally a second and a half to catch my attention before I hit 7-1.
The voicemails now get translated into text messages now more than anything else. So people leaving voicemails, you got to go slow, you got to pronunciate, and you have to like have a good call to action on there, or speculating what I'm going to do to build trust with them that, hey, if I don't hear from you, I'll call you next week. And then you call them next week and you're building that trust that you're not just a robot, that you're actually a person doing your job.
I would, yeah, for me, I'm kind of like, I exchange my phone number after I've interviewed or talked to somebody, and I'm like, just send me your contact card, because otherwise, in a week, I'll be like, it's spam. Like I won't remember. Like, you better send it out, because my initial responses, and I'm a pain in the ass, because I was asked the other day, like, where I was discussing this with my wife, who's in HR, and I was thinking, I said, would this be an inappropriate response to a interview question of, what are your weaknesses? And if I said something like, hey, I'm bad at pillow talk, and I'm a bad texter with too much brevity and typos. The problem is I don't communicate I'm very short. Like, I don't have time. And it doesn't explain the pillow talk part. But the point is, that was my answer. She said that isn't actually a horrible answer to give. Just remember, I've never been promoted, so don't listen to any of my advice what to do in an interview. And I've been asked to leave plenty of times. The point being is, you got to get the format right for the person who's like me. Right. And the truth is, if you can get my attention in short with the right call to action, it will work in long form, in my opinion. I don't think I think if you send long form, it's a huge mistake. And maybe you fight me on and say, hey, no, maybe. But if you're cold reaching out, it's got to be fast to the point to say, yeah, I'd love to get 10 minutes with you to talk about that.
Long storm is what I establish a relationship with you. And so after we have a conversation, then I'll send you a long form with more of the details that they have a chance to dig into. If they're interested, more, they'll connect with you.
I think if you sent me like short, mid, or long, and I wrote, and it's like, hey, when I send you an email I'm trying to add value since we've met, what's your pref? I'd be like, put mid. I like you enough for mid. Long's never an option. You should be like, good, here's a mid-form version of that.
Right.
It'd be like, thank you. Like, I appreciate you for asking. So one of our polls I'm running right now is like, what about 50% of the people right now say getting meetings is their biggest sales challenge. The other one's something else, but no one commented what it was. So I'm going to guess it's
getting meetings is what, or it's picking up the phone or getting meetings. And it's because they're looking for the meeting instead of looking to add the value and listening. It's that curiosity ear. So curiosity is a coaching word I use a lot when I'm working with my clients, because when you're curious, you actually give a shit about the person on the other side. And when you're not curious, you just want to talk about, I want to know if you're the right customer that's going to buy from me. And if that's all your intention of talking to somebody, the other person is not going to talk with you. If they pick up the phone and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were somebody else, so I was just about to go to a meeting. I'm calling BS. And they picked up the phone. So now have a conversation with them. Real, hey, I totally get it. Thanks for taking a call. Do you have 30 seconds? Let me just tell you what I'm here for. And you're building up a relationship with this person. You're building trust. And you give that 30 seconds and you give one or two more questions and you try to bring a conversation. Then you say, before we go any further, do you have 30 more seconds? Because I know you're busy for a meeting. Okay, go ahead. Because right now everybody's on Zoom meetings, so they can put mute on and they just go ahead and take their calls whenever they want. So if they care about what you're saying and you're connecting with if you're hearing what they're saying and you're connecting with them, they will stay on longer.
It's very rare I'll pick up a phone, but and you're talking about specifically calling. That does work when someone like, no, you're super busy. I'm from here. We do this. You got 15. You give me 30 seconds to. Just kind of tell you what, how we generally.
Before you hang up on me, can I tell you about 30 seconds about what I do? You kind of make a joke about it, but it's like the design that conversation is, you got to realize you have to bring this person from the world he's in to the plot of the story you're trying to tell him. And so if you're not able to put them into the conversation and where they need to be thinking, are you thinking business growth? You're thinking development? Are you thinking training? You're thinking coaching? Whatever that is, you got to tell them the reason for my call is I want to do letting somebody know that consciously the reason for my call, people are more likely to actually understand where you're coming at and then engage in your conversation.
Yeah. I also do it sometimes too, because if I'm looking for someone to be a good dialer, I'm like, hey, you did a good job. Are you happy where you're at? It's good. Reverse recruit them.
I got recruited all the time on the phone when I was doing it on the phone.
You know, you're doing it right. All right. So talk about some of the trends in your industry. You talk a lot about dialing, but there's a lot of things coming down the pipe that's making that harder. So you want to talk about some kind of not threats, but things that are impacting how sales has been done and some of the maybe methods you're teaching. So maybe talk about the trends and what you're doing to kind of coach around it.
Well, there's so many trends out there right now that are making everything's automated and people can do 20,000 emails a day. And so that's really being slowed down and connected through their spam filters and things like that within organizations. Customers that have relationships with people with a client, they can't even get their emails through. So you have to realize that it's you got to take your 5-6 different strategies to go after and connect with people, and you have to stay on them consistently to actually break through to make yourself valuable to someone. So just know that you can't give up, or you just can't trust one thing. You just can't do social. You just can't do email. And that's your one way to get people going. You got to bring them into your world. And once they break through, then hopefully you can establish something. Just like you mentioned, texting is something that we haven't really taken advantage of yet. And so more and more, I think government's trying to get a hold of and making sure that doesn't get abused, but we have to be ready for all the ways to actually connect with people. With COVID, we all kind of started working remotely more, so we don't really have an office phone anymore. Companies are saving money by not providing phones for people anymore in their office space because they're just forward everything to a cell phone of their employees. So no, more people are more mobile, so you have to really know you're catching them where they're at.
Yeah. Do you still recommend calling me at 8:00 at night?
If you're on.
Oh, man.
No,
I do acknowledge when I get callers.
Business to business, you have to be 9 to 5. It is. You have to respect that environment because most people, even though people work outside that, you have to respect the zone of business out.
Yeah, I will say when you're doing something like though, let's say like a new deck or you're getting landscaping quotes, I'm actually okay with those ones coming after. Be like, hey, listen, I'm available this time tomorrow. Now that you picked up the phone, would you want to stop by after work? That works because I'm not going to get my time during it because I'm too busy. But after, if it's some kind of outdoor, there's different. And the point of that is that there's not one size fits all for your business. If you're trying to get somebody to help them with time savings, unlikely you're going to get them during the middle of the day. Right. So it's like you might be like, hey, listen, you're busy all day. I've tried. This is what I help you solve. Like, oh, okay, well, okay, great. Let me talk to you. I think that's amazing. In your own journey, talk about your own journey here a little bit. What have you really loved about building your company, and what's the part you wish you could just never have to deal with?
What I love about my journey but what I do as the Tenacious Leader is actually just the helping of people. I love seeing aha moments on people when they get stuck. And I keep showing the mirror in front of them, and they go, I get it now. And the light bulb goes off, and then their business starts rolling. I had a client that we had a very niche product, and we only find 500 customers to go after. And we were able to make it very simple. And they were able to get 40 meetings, 40 conversations with 500 leads. And that was like a woohoo. That was such a win and so powerful. On the flip side, what I hate figuring out is I hate copywriting. And so I hate sitting down and I love ChatGPT to help give me some of that thought-provoking ways of typing and editing. I love connecting with people who are marketing people that can help me do that part, because wordsmithing, I'm too casual in my conversational writing, but that's what limits me the most.
Do you help the organizations? Like one of the votes was for differentiation, and that's one that a lot of people struggle with, because I could be saying the greatest thing, but if I don't know how to differentiate on the messaging, phone, email, whatever, text, it's just everyone's selling vanilla, right? And so, do you help them with that, or where do you see people kind of fall apart? Just take a few moments to discuss differentiation, because it's a tough thing to do with a business and what you're doing and selling. But how do you handle that with your customers?
When I try to figure out the differentiating factors of people, is really, what are you truly trying to solve? because I sit down, I work with fractional CFOs. Fractional CFOs will tell me everything they do. I specialize in simplifying the process for people. I go through and operationalize and make things, you sound like everybody else. How do you make yourself different? That's where sometimes you do have to niche down to a specialty, but still come across in a way that can mold into different niches. But just knowing that, you have to sit back and know what you're truly trying to help. When you can focus on truly guiding to where your purpose is and what you're trying to accomplish, the differentiating comes apart. But when you sound like everybody else, if you look at your three other people that compete in what you do and you sound the same, your website's the same, you're a commodity now. And so you're truly trying to get people to connect to who you are.
Yeah, I think some of the differentiation sometimes comes in the presentation of the problem you're specifically solving. Uh, and a lot of times it's just because that person has that problem because they use some system, or that they have like an affinity towards something, and you come in with like the problem that offering, whatever it is, product, service, tech, SaaS, whatever, it doesn't solve. It's almost like it's not false differentiation. It's just recognition of a problem that you said, but we solved that really well. Now they'll get your technology, your product, service, and find there's probably shortcomings in other areas. But the idea is to break through. Sometimes it's just in the message to the problem itself. And if you're solo, sometimes the differentiator is you, and you got to own that when you work with me, it depends on what you're selling, right? You get this brain, this background, whatever else, not as scalable, but that's sometimes how you start. What do you do though in that moment though? I guess the question is, with a solopreneur type where the differentiation truly is just that person's knowledge base, their approach, their attentiveness to customer service, whatever it may be, or the combination. How do you break them out of that from a sales process to scale?
You kind of go full circle of our conversation. If they don't know what kind of questions to ask to actually connect with the people they're talking with. When you sit down and you go through interviews or plays or discovery calls, how are you actually, what questions are you doing to connect with the person? And so you can set them up to be right in line with where you're trying to able to help them. I was talking with one of my friends the other day, and he was like, I just started off by saying, instead of being a fractional CFO, you know what? I'm going to help you take stuff off your plate. How about we start with that, and then we go from complex systems and processes later. Let's give you an hour or two back in your day. And that was like what people needed to hear who are stuck building a business and they needed better systems and processes in place. So really it's finding the right questions that get the customer to actually engage in what you're trying to help them with.
Yeah. Maybe talk about a little bit how you're using technology. You got all this AI out there and it can be overwhelming. What's the right balance? What do you recommend to help in the sales process? I think you talk about content a little bit, but how else can you use it to really nail down the sales portion of this?
I mean, there is automation when it talks about outreach and building awareness. There's so many automation tools out there that can help you build your social world, plus building up that follow-up. That's one of the key things I see missing a lot is the follow-up. So once somebody posts or likes, making sure they're getting some love or some attention from you is very important. And that's something that could be easily automated, and it could be general, but it could be also something that automated to put into your box for a to-do list and make sure it's more personalized in how you feedback it. But you can't ultimately, kind of like that rice maker, lock it, forget it, and it'll be done in 20 minutes. You have to stay engaged in all your automation so you can always know, is it still relevant? Is there something else coming up here that you can be personalized to make it specific for that person? It has to connect.
What's who, I always like this around 30 minutes or so. Just tell me about who really you work really well with, and what, should they go to tenaciousleader.com? How should they get a hold of you? Like, who is it you want to get a hold of you? Because if I want somebody to hold, I want it to be the perfect customer for you. So not that anybody else can't, but who's the perfect customer you want to get a hold of? That you want to get a hold of?
Customer for me is a founder-led organization that just keeps hiring wrong salespeople. I'm the best person to come in to help understand how to build a system, a sales process around that founder so they can get their life back, but also start building something in their organization that can be repeatable and build something that they can be proud of, that they know that if they're going to talk to a customer or a prospect, that they're going to say and do all the right things. And when a founder is able to then have a team around them doing the sales stuff for them, they're happier because now they're just closers. They're just coming in, closing, and welcoming in the new clients and keeping that going so they have more time strategically developing and building an ongoing business.
What I appreciate you coming on today. So what are some? We'll start with one question. What's a question I should have asked you but I haven't yet?
What being tenacious? What has where do you find yourself to fall short of to be not being tenacious?
Your personal. I was going to ask you that. I'm glad you did. What? How would you answer that? I mean, it was right there, and I'm glad you said it because I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Reality is it's kind of like cobblers have no shoes. When sometimes it happens. The reason why I'm out here promoting myself, talking about myself, because I want more customers. It's so you have to have other avenues. And so you have to be always in action, doing something to build your business. I have here a coffee mug that I call Thoughts Become Things. And that's something I work every day to make sure the right thoughts are coming in to me, to make sure I'm doing all the right activities to build a business that can provide the livelihood for my family, take my kids to college and trips. And if I don't have myself stay focused on what I need to do every day to promote myself, to build connections, to keep things going forward is what I need to do.
Yeah. Taylor's kids are often naked. I mean, you'll get to it. But what's funny is that sometimes when you have the power of understanding the process, you spread yourself too thin. So, for example, we get social media in my company. I find sometimes like, why am I on all these other social media platforms and not just focusing on LinkedIn, like where the bread and butter is? And YouTube's a really good one for us as well. But then it's like, because we have the knowledge, we can do it okay sometimes on the other channels. But it's like, is that a distraction? Maybe in the sales world, do you see that same thing where someone's like really good at the interactions but they are spreading themselves too thin by not staying in that focused zone? Like, does that happen, or is that just me? I'm asking for a friend.
Lane. You do have to pick your lane because you can't do everything. And I think being good in everything, but being great at one thing is where you go. When I do one-on-one coaching, working with people, Strength Finders, that book and that test, that is something I build on people's strengths more than I try to fix their flaws. Because if you build somebody's strength, if I could be better and better at more and more speaking engagements, and I do more and more and I have fun doing it, I'm empowered doing it, all the writing can go away. I'm not good at writing, but I love talking and connecting with people. So more I can talk and connect with people, the less writing I have to do. So you got to focus on your strength and make it happen.
I love that. And I'm one who says definitely focus on your strengths, become like the best at it. Tiger Woods, great golfer, right? Can't drive a car very well or do some other things that's kind of really screwed up his career. But he in his prime, greatest golfer. You would have no idea if he could throw a football or not. Like, you don't even care. Like, I think he tried to become a Navy SEAL. It's like, why exactly? But the point is, and that screwed him up. He got hurt.
Michael Jordan, right? He went to baseball.
I think he went to baseball. The rumor was allegedly, because he has a lot of money. I don't assume.
Oh, okay. He was trying to build his other business.
There was a lot of stuff going on, I think, where he may have been asked to leave the NBA for gambling and some other things. There were, his father had been murdered during that time. That was kind of really weird circumstances. There was a lot of shit going on that maybe he had to take a break, and this was their way of letting him do that gracefully. I don't know. So, we won't get into that. That's just conspiracy theory. We can throw it up later. If I was selling a book on it, we would.
Like a lot. You know a lot more than me. I was just bringing up the
right. Well, I don't know. Hey, I'm not shy to say I have a Stanley. I just want you to know that.
There you go.
But
at least it fits in your hand. It's not one of the
giant one. Maybe I'm just huge. Maybe that is a full size one. I'm just
maybe a big hand. You're right.
I'm digressing. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm gonna, I love what you're doing. I love meeting guys who really understand the sales process. Even for myself, it was understanding what a salesperson is, and it's taken a while for me to understand that it's not the, you know, gregarious figure. I actually think introverts are better at it than extroverts because they are more likely to want to say less, listen more, and follow the process so they don't have to make up, because that's where they're like, oh, they get cringy.
Right.
That might be my final question to you. Introvert or extrovert? Who's better at it?
Well, it's all about service. And so I sell through service. I don't sell through commission or drive or pressure. How do you ask the questions to actually serve the customer more? And when you're serving, you'll sell more. And that's my mantra. So I would probably, I can do either way, but it's more the personality internally. Are you a server or are you greedy? And I would rather take somebody with no sales skill but sales and cares about other people, and I'll make them good at sales.
I like it. I think you said introvert. I'm going to go with that. I'm boxing you in, damn it.
Yeah,
it's probably a version of, it's the extrovert that seeks solitude is probably the right answer. It's somebody who's okay being out there, but really would like to pull it back, doesn't need people all the time.
Yeah, my boss would say once he had a meeting, he'd have to go home for like 3 hours and just be himself, by himself.
Yeah, no, I'm with that. Like, I'm the same way. I'm on camera all day, but man, if you meet me in public, I'm kind of like, hey. That's not fully true, but it's somewhat true that I kind of like when you're in a mode, you kind of you need those moments of reflection because you're on, and all of a sudden you're like, I really need to be off for like 6 hours and don't want to talk to anybody. So I get that.
I think the older you get too, you're more assessing and processing so much more.
Exactly.
And you're kind of see things not just one dimensional. You're looking at everything more dynamically. And so it does make you more introverted the older you get in sales versus younger, where you're like, come on, let's go. It's the extroverts kind of drive people crazy.
They do. And I was certainly one growing up that didn't care what your opinion was of me. I was there to entertain myself. And if other people laughed, it only fueled the fire and annoyed the people who were. I would not get along with a person like me, just at all. And as I've gotten older, I've realized, you know, I've never won or lost a deal because I drive a 2013 minivan that's got dents on it. You know, I got kids coming up. Could I get a nicer car? Maybe. Do I want one? Not really. I just want it to run. I've realized that you don't need flash. You got to be there. The other thing I've realized is I've never won a deal because I talk too much, but I've certainly lost one.
Oh, yeah.
And I've certainly won deals on days where I just didn't have energy and I just listened and used pauses and didn't expect that. I'm like, maybe I'm onto something there. I don't know.
It's true. The power of the pause. Yep.
The power of the pause. And as a podcast host, I am practicing pausing.
I appreciate that.
You are welcome. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Kevin Juza, get the Tenacious Leader. You rock. Thanks for joining us today.
Cheers. Appreciate your time.
Hang out in that green room that's not so green, and I'll be right back with you. Thank you so much for coming on today. The Tenacious Leader, Kevin Juza. If you're in San Diego or in northern Mexico, they're going to Juza. And if you're not from the United States, truthfully, this podcast is for everyone. But I want the United States to have more entrepreneurs. I think we need more of them. It makes our country awesome. It's not that the other countries aren't awesome, but I feel like our country needs this as a competitive advantage. That's why it's part of my mission to find the way to help 1 million entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. That's right. You see the pause I threw in there? Learning from my mistakes. Kevin, thank you once again. Check him out, tenaciousleader.com. Get some time with him to just kind of learn what he does, because he really is super knowledgeable in a way that is fun and interactive and not cheesy. He kind of practices his own prayers and preacher and gossip and gospel. He gets right into it. If this was your first time, thank you so much. Come back again. I hope you can follow us on socials, and if not, subscribe to YouTube at Never Been Promoted. If you love the show, leave the 5-star review on the podcast. And if you don't, you want to have some suggestions or you want to come on, check me out on LinkedIn and get in touch with me. It'll actually be me, and I'll happily have an interaction with you. So we meet again. Get out there, cut the tightest stuff to hold you back, and unleash your entrepreneur. Thanks for listening.